All righty. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Tech Tuesday session about advanced Zoom features. We have John Young today, who's going to be taking us through some features that, we're all using Zoom a lot. We're kind of in a remote hybrid world now, but there may be some features in Zoom that perhaps you're not aware of, or you've always wondered how somebody is doing something on screen and you just never figured out how to do it on your own. That's what John's here to help you with today. So John is part of our event services team. We also have Pavel Piz on today. He's going to be, kind of stepping in. And if you have any questions at any point during the session, you can put it in our Q&A or in our chat, and he can help answer any questions you may have about Zoom. So both John and Pavel are going to be our experts today, teaching us everything about Zoom that you could probably want to know. We are recording today's session, so after the session is over, be on the lookout for an email from me, probably tomorrow, with a link to the recording so that you can go through everything we talked about, as well as some helpful links from Zoom's support site, with instructions about anything that we may be talking about today. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to John. John, thanks so much for being here today.
No problem. Thanks for setting this up. And hi, everybody. I feel like I just did this not too long ago, but I think it's already been 6 months. So I think some of you were at the last one. So welcome back. I am going to run through a couple of basic things as well in terms of signing in and some features before we go into kind of best practices and some of the more advanced stuff. So let's get started. I'm going to start sharing my screen. So everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yep. Yes.
All right, great. So starting with the client, a lot of basic, one basic thing is when you first sign into the client, you want to make sure we're signing into our single sign-on application, right? So, people can register with their own email address, but because we're using the Weill Cornell account, you want to sign in with your SSO. And our domain is weillcornell.zoom.us, right? Once you click this to continue, you get brought into a browser page with our standard single sign-on page. So you put in your username and password, you click login. You can now close this window, and your client is now logged in. Again, it's basic, but I like to start with the basics. The next step with logging in, another place you can log in is with the Outlook integration. So to schedule a meeting with Outlook, we used to have a plugin over here where you have to install another client to integrate to Zoom. But the new way of doing it, and it's much cleaner, it also carries over to the web O365, which I'll show you, is if you click a new meeting, when you click new meeting, you're going to see add a Zoom meeting or settings here. So normally you would just click, once you set the time, you would click add a Zoom meeting. And if you weren't logged in, you're going to have to go through the same process, right? You got a pop-up, you scroll down to single sign-on, Weill Cornell here. For continue, it'll bring into our login. So you've now tied your Outlook integration into your Zoom account. Similarly to on the web portal, let me bring that down. So when you log into O365, you can also add a Zoom meeting from within Outlook here. So if you click Outlook, go into your calendar and click new event. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, so the Zoom plugin is here. You can come here and either go into settings to customize your meeting as you need it, which we can cover later, or just click out a meeting. But again, you're gonna have to log in once that it's gonna save. Once you log in, it'll save your settings. I'm currently using it in private browsing, so it's asking me to log in. but the idea is the same as your standard Outlook client. The other, I think, important thing to note is if you added the Zoom meeting and you want to change the date and time of your actual calendar invite, because I just clicked add a Zoom meeting first, but my meeting is actually on June 1st. Best practice would be to come to settings and click update the meeting info. So what happens now is the new time of your Zoom meeting is pushed back to the Zoom instance. And then so now Zoom, the application will know that you changed the meeting date and time within Outlook. Just for a second. So let's go through some of the meeting settings. All right, so from within the Zoom client, I'm going to schedule a meeting. I'm just showing it from the different places, but the settings are all pretty much going to be the same. Right. So when you schedule a meeting, you're going to put in the name of the meeting, the date, time, whether it's going to be a recurring meeting. You can choose whether your meeting is going to use a unique ID, or you can use your personal meeting ID. My recommendation typically is to use a unique ID every time, because when you have back-to-back meetings and you use your personal meeting ID, people will jump in before, if your meeting was running late. From a security perspective, you can add a passcode to your meeting. You can add a waiting room so that you can admit people and not admit certain people that shouldn't be joining. Or you can say only allow authenticated users to join. So basically what this means is guests who are not logged into their Zoom client cannot join. Now, we have a couple of categories of affiliates or categories of users that can join. So in this case, if you click this one, only Cornell users, both the medical school and the undergrad, can join your meetings. WCM plus affiliates, WCM only, WCM Qatar TDI, and a couple others. And you can go into your meeting settings and customize your own authenticated user group as well. Video settings by default, whether you want the host and participant videos to be on, whether you want to allow dial-in or computer audio only. And when you, from the client, you can say, I want a Outlook event to be generated. From an advanced setting perspective, you can allow participants to join anytime. And this is, sometimes you're scheduling meetings for other people. This is definitely a setting that you want to enable in case you won't be able to make the meeting. Q&A, mute participants upon entry, automatically record meeting, block certain entries, certain users. These are all just settings that are pretty self-explanatory. Alternative hosts. Here's another setting that you would need if you schedule a meeting that you don't plan on joining. Note that the alternative host has to be a user in our Zoom instance. So for example, I couldn't add my colleague from Cornell University because they have their own Zoom instance, or somebody from NYP would have their own Zoom instance. And that's pretty much it from a scheduling perspective. Next, let me bring my Zoom window down. We'll go through some of the settings here. All right, so now that we're in a meeting, some of the settings are, if you click the arrow with your microphone, you can choose your hardware device. If you have a USB microphone or anything else, you would come here and select the correct audio device. Sometimes you would bring a laptop into a conference room, and the conference room has an AV system that is also joined to the same Zoom meeting, but you want to see what's going on in your laptop. So when you join a Zoom meeting in that sense, you want to make sure you leave computer audio, because if you have audio enabled on your laptop and with the microphone and speakers in the conference room, you're going to get feedback. So typically when I join a conference room, I can join the Zoom meeting, but make sure I don't leave computer audio. From a video perspective, over here is where you can choose kind of the blur my background, choose virtual backgrounds. From a virtual background perspective, we work with external affairs and we have the standard Weill Cornell backgrounds here, automatic or already in there, so you don't have to download it and choose it from your computer. From a security settings perspective, this is where you can lock your meeting. Once it's locked, once all your participants are in, you lock your meeting, nobody else can join. Enable waiting room, Q&A, we talked about some of that. Here is where you can allow your participants certain access to do things. For example, in this Tech Tuesday, we're now allowing participants to share a screen. If you wanted specific people to share a screen, you would promote them to a host or co-host, and then they can do it even though participants can't. And we'll show that in a second. If you have certain people that shouldn't be there or disruptive or Zoom bombers, you can remove them from here or from the participants list. Let's go to the participant list for a second. So from the participant list, here you have control to mute people who maybe they forgot they're unmuted and you know, are having conversation on the side. You can turn on and off video. You can mute all. From the additional features here on the participant list, you can mute participants upon entry and either allow or not allow them to unmute themselves. Again, depending on the security features or the access rights that you want to give your users. One other feature on the participant list that is not shown here because I am the host already is if there's no host in the meeting, there's going to be a button here that says claim host. And that's a useful feature, but you need the host key, which I will go into in a second. But the way to claim the host privileges would be in the participant list. Q&A is just where standard. Polls, you can add polls for participants to provide answers for. Same thing with the chat. Share screen, we'll come back to this in a second. You can record the meeting and, I think you're already recording. Why stop? Yeah, so all hosts and co-hosts or participants, if you allow it, can record their own copy of this session. Show captions. So we have the ability now to have automatic captions. So let's see, where are my captions? My captions are actually showing up on my primary monitor, so you're not going to see it. But if you look at, now that I enabled captions for this meeting, however, within your own window, you should be able to start the captioning. So you can try that out. Breakout rooms is we can actually, it's mainly used for EDU and for work sessions, but you can break out all the participants into a set number of rooms to do group projects or you know, certain activities before forcing them back to the main room. Reactions is where you can do hand raises, you know, certain emotes. Zoom actually now allows hand gestures. So based on the camera, if I'm raising my hand, you see this spin, it's actually saying, hey, I see, now I have my hand raised. It kind of gimmicky, but it works. I think thumbs up was the other one. And now I have an automatic thumbs up. Whiteboards, I'll do that with the screen share in a second. And I think that's it. All right, so let me go to some of the more, the other screen share options. All right, so I have dual screens, so you can choose to share either either of your primary screens, or you can choose to share Zoom's native whiteboard app. All right, so I use that. You may see some stuff here. Let's see. Oh, no, this is a different session. All right, so from here, I think it's a collaborative whiteboard also. I believe the rest of you can also choose to draw on here. Vanessa, Pavel, are you guys able to draw?
I might have set it up just for hosts and co-hosts.
Is it? Okay. Share whiteboards. Okay, we'll play with that a little more later then. But this is the whiteboard feature. Let me stop sharing. The other thing you can do to share is you can actually use your PowerPoint file as a virtual background for sharing. So if you go into share, go into advanced, you can select PowerPoint as virtual background, select the file from your computer.
Oh, John, you're not sharing. Oh, there we go. Speaking.
Oh yeah. Oh, I wasn't sharing that. Let me
Yeah.
start over then. Your screen to show it. All right, so now I'm sharing my screen.
Perfect. Thanks.
So if you go back to the screen share window, go to advanced, there's an option that says PowerPoint as a virtual background. So if you click that, it'll open up a browsing window to select a file on your computer. I have a PowerPoint here ready. And so now the PowerPoint is actually my virtual background. And using the Zoom controls, I can go to the Zoom controls, which are somewhere. My bar is blocking. Sorry. There we go. All right. So as a virtual background on my screen, I have, sorry, the show captions is blocking it. Hide captions. All right. Next page here. So, you know, within Zoom, there's a little control bar on the bottom that allows me to go to the next page of the slide. All right, so I'm going to stop that. The next couple of things I want to talk about is it's about settings and websites. I'm not sharing again. Start sharing again. All right, is everybody seeing my Zoom screen? My Zoom client?
Mhm.
All right, great. So to go into the settings within the Zoom client, you go here and go to settings. Some of the settings that I personally like to use is I do not like to enter full screen automatically when joining a meeting. I'd like to have that, you know, my window size controlled already. If you have dual monitors, you can use dual monitors, which will open up two separate Zoom screens, one for content, one for gallery as you use it. But again, I'd like, it's a preference at that point. You can try it, see if it works out for your workflow. I like to always show my Zoom meeting controls so that it's not hidden and I don't have to hunt it down. Ask me to confirm when I leave a meeting. So they're pretty self-explanatory, but they're all there. A couple other ones that I like to do are, I like to show my Zoom meeting window, my Zoom windows when I'm doing a screen share. And it's particularly useful when I'm doing a screen share about the Zoom application. Otherwise, if I were to turn this off, you know, as I share my screen, you wouldn't be able to see the control bar and the client itself. Recording, for local recording, you can choose and change where you want to save the files. Right, so from the recording tab, you can come here and select some of these options. All right. And then next will be some of the settings within Zoom. So to log into your Zoom, so those settings were the client settings, and those client settings change if you have a laptop and a desktop, right? You know, dual screen and how you want your windows resized. That's specific to the computer that you're using. There are settings associated with your account, which will carry across from computer to computer, but those settings are on the Zoom website, right? So if you go to weillcornell.zoom.us and click login, you're now in your Zoom profile. Going to the Zoom profile, here's your initial dashboard. And from here, you can actually set personal meeting IDs, right? So my personal meeting ID, I can share it, I don't mind. But, you know, I put 413, 1300, and 575 because that's something that's easy for me to remember and for me to give out. You can also use a personal meeting link. It's my seaweed, right? So I can say, hey, go to weillcornell.zoom.us/my/myseaweed and not have to remember a custom meeting code. This host key, I can share it. I don't want too This host key is what you would give to somebody, and they can then go into your meeting ID, go into one of your meetings and claim host. And the rest of it is just kind of the settings of your email address and password and how your accounts are set up. Now for your actual meeting settings, you would come here. I have a couple more options here as an admin, but if you come here, you can go to settings. And here are the settings associated with your account specifically, right? Do you want a waiting room turned on by default when you join meetings? Do you want to require passcode by default every time? When you set up when you use the Outlook integration for Zoom, the meeting invite, do you want it to include the passcode so they can just click that link and not have to put in a passcode if you have the passcode enabled? Only authenticated users, right? So what I showed earlier, when you try to schedule a meeting, you can choose for that specific meeting whether you wanted only authenticated users to join. Well, by default, it was unchecked. And if you want to enable it by default, you can turn it on here from your client, from your account. Here are all the authenticated user groups that I have. Again, some settings about waiting rooms and things like that. So, it's a large list. If you want to come in here and take a look at some of these settings and what makes sense for you to change, this is where you would do it. From here also, you can schedule meetings and webinars. So to schedule a meeting, you come to the meeting section, you can see your upcoming meetings, your previous meetings, and then, your personal room information. So let's schedule a meeting from here. So when you schedule a meeting from here, again, it's very similar from a settings perspective. You do a meeting name, time, duration, and a lot of the same settings that we had previously. Recurring, registration, and we'll talk about meeting registration in a little bit. Whether the meeting ID is going to be unique or using a personal ID, passcodes, waiting rooms, authenticated users. Other options include same as the previous, right? Including alternative hosts. So to show this and reports, again, because I have admin rights, I'm going to stop sharing for a little bit so Vanessa can talk about registration and we can look at some of the reports.
Sure, I'm just gonna share my screen, and John, if you could let me know if you can see my.
Yep, you see the screen.
Perfect. Okay, let me just get rid of my meeting control so I can see a little easier. Okay, hey guys, so this is, I'm going to show you quickly how to do registration. So, if you signed up for any Tech Tuesday, including today's, you'll notice that I have a registration form set up. And I do that because one, I like to know about how many people are coming to each session. And two, I always send a follow-up email afterward, with links. And to do that, I need to have everybody's email. So what I do is you're going to create a meeting like John had showed you previously. You're going to log into weillcornell.zoom.us and you're going to go to the meetings tab, and I'm going to schedule a meeting with this button. So you're going to just type in any information about your meeting. This is just going to be a test. And what you're going to look for is this right here where it says registration. And if you want a registration form for your meeting, you're going to click on that checkbox so that it's required. So what this does is when you finally, set up your meeting and save it, what you're going to see now when you click your meeting is a registration link right here. And this is the link that you're going to send to people, whether you have your meeting posted online, sent out via email. This is what you need to send them so that they can register for your meeting. You can change some things about this meeting. You may have noticed that the one that goes out for Tech Tuesday looks a little different. The way you can do that is, let me go into my meetings. Actually, let me go into the Tech Tuesday one right now. So you'll notice here's my registration link, and there's a tab now at the top of my meeting that says registration. So I can click on that. I can get some really quick information off the bat. I had 114 people register for this session. I could even view them all right here. If I wanted to, resend confirmation emails to everybody, I could. or import a CSV file of everybody who registered, I could do that from here as well if I wanted to send, follow-up information to everybody who did register. If I wanted to change certain things about my registration form, it's here under registration options, and I could click the edit link right here. And this is where I can just see certain settings about my registration form. I can decide whether I want the form to automatically close once the meeting's over, which I highly recommend. If somebody registers, are they automatically approved, or do I want to manually approve each and every single person that wants to register for my event? So I highly recommend checking out the settings for the registration form to make it work for you and the needs of your particular meeting. So when you make a Zoom registration form, there are 3 questions that automatically appear, which is name, email, and then confirming the person's email address. But you can add questions here by clicking the questions tab. You can check any of these pre-selected fields if you want to know their city, their phone number, something like that. But you can also add questions. I like to add department because I just like to know, where everybody's coming from when they join Tech Tuesday. And you can just add a question here. You can make it a short text or just like a single radio button where they just have, they have to choose from options that you decide. And when you do have a question, you just hit save and then save all so that it moves on to your registration form. And that registration form link is not going to change. Even if you make updates to it, that link will remain the same so that, you don't have to worry about once it's sent out and you make changes, all those changes will transfer over to the link that you've sent already. When it comes to reporting, you might want to know how many people have registered, or also things like who actually attended my meeting. So there's a couple of reports here. One is meeting. And just like it says, you could pull registration reports and even polls. So if you had polls for your meeting, that's where you can pull information about how everybody may have answered your poll. So I'm going to click on that really quick. Zoom lets you look within a 1-month period. So I'm going to do from May 1st to today. And here are the last couple of meetings that I had for this time period. And if I hit generate, that's going to create a CSV file of everybody who I have registered for this particular Tech Tuesday meeting on advanced Zoom techniques. I can switch the drop down here and pull different reports for meeting reports and, work from there. Let me go back to the reports tab right here. Usage lets you see who actually attended your meeting and how long they actually stayed on to your meeting. So duration. If I click that, I'm going to look through the same time period of 1 month and search that really quick. So you can see I've had a lot of meetings, and this will give me a quick overview of when the meeting happened and the duration of the meeting and how many participants logged into that meeting. If I click the number, this is where I can actually download and export a CSV file if I wanted, or I could view it right here, of exactly who logged in and how long they stayed on. So, if you do any kind of reporting metrics for, if you do, regular meetings and things like that, this is where you can pull that information in reporting. Anything else you want me to show, John, before I pass it back over to you?
No, that was great. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. I'm going to stop share.
And I think one other thing that I was going to show that I forgot about, which I'll do so now, is so from within the share. I'm not sharing yet. Let me share so that I can share the share window. All right, so you see my Zoom window. All right, so if you click share screen again. Again, I like to just share my desktop, but I know certain people just like to share specific applications, right? So, and one very common usage of that is sharing PowerPoint. So if I have PowerPoint shared, let me share my screen. I'm going to share my window. Actually, let me share my desktop. So from within PowerPoint. So right now I'm sharing my entire desktop from within PowerPoint, and I want to go into a slideshow. And a common issue that occurs is that I believe I'm now showing my presenter view instead of the actual desktop. Is that correct?
Yes, you can see the presenter instead of the other way around.
Right. So one thing that I guess people don't quite know is how to switch it quickly. So to switch it so that you're actually showing your presentation instead of the presenter view is go to display settings and swap presenter view and slideshow. So now I should be sharing the full screen presentation, and my presenter view is on my other monitor now. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right, I think that's most of what I wanted to cover. Are there any features that people have questions about, want to see? For example, if there's any interest, I can send everybody into a breakout room just to kind of, so everybody can experience what that is, or anything else.
I think we've got a couple of questions about how to upload photos from in their profile.
So that would be, I think that would be from the website. So let me share my screen again. So share screen. So if you log in, just double check. Well, you click it. Okay, there we go. So log into walkcornell.zoom.us, right? And then come into your profile and then click this blank profile picture. I should probably put in my picture, but if you click here, you'll be able to put in your profile picture, and the requirements are here. It has to be a JPEG, GIF, or a PNG file, and has to be smaller than 2 megabytes.
John, I have someone
Yep.
who just wants to know if you could explain again, how do you present so that others see only the PowerPoint, but they can see the presenter's notes? I think they're referring to the dual monitors that you were showing earlier.
Sure. So I'm actually not in dual monitor mode. It doesn't change things too much though. However, so let me share my my screen. Right. So I think I'm sharing my desktop. You see my Zoom browser window. So I just have my PowerPoint slide here, right? And I can have it on either screen. The idea is I'm going to hit the slideshow tab button on my PowerPoint. So right now I'm sharing one of the two screens, and I probably have to ask, hey, do you see my presentation, or do you see kind of the rest of PowerPoint? And I think you're seeing the presenter view. So what you do is you come to display settings and just swap presenter view and slideshow. And I'll tell you why it's always happening to me like this, because my primary monitor is my external monitor. So it always thinks that that's what I'm using as my presenter view. If my laptop monitor was my primary monitor, this would come up as default. But again, it's a quick switch to go here, and my screen just broke. Sorry, give me a second. Let's do it again. So you see my PowerPoint, right?
Yes.
Okay, right. So if you start a slideshow, one screen, my primary monitor is now showing the full PowerPoint, and my secondary monitor, which is the one I'm actually sharing, is showing the presenter view. So you just go to display settings here and swap the two.
There's a follow-up question to that. Is there any way to share two screens or all the windows in a given application?
Not with Zoom, as far as I know. Zoom you can only share one of the two screens. And Pavel, if I'm wrong, feel free to let me know.
I'd have to double check, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a single screen.
There's a question of somebody who just wants to clarify what you're referring to when you talk about the Zoom client.
Oh, no problem. So the Zoom client is a separate application that you install. Basically this, the Zoom client is needed to join a Zoom meeting. All right. So normally when you have a new computer, or when you're using somebody else's computer, they may not have Zoom installed. So when you click a Zoom link, let me show you that. So from a meeting, normally when you join a meeting, you're clicking a link like this. Oh wait, that's a registration link. Join a different meeting. Join a different meeting. So I'm going to join this meeting. And when I click here, when I click that, this window comes up. And, you know, it's a browser window that says, oh, I'm going to try to join a Zoom meeting.
You're
using
not
this-
sharing, John.
Oh, am I not sharing? That would be a problem. All right. So let's do that again. So from my Outlook, I'm trying to join a Zoom meeting, right? So I would just click this link. And usually what happens is a browser window comes up and says, and it uses the browser to try to join a Zoom meeting. If you have Zoom installed, it'll say, you know, okay, I'm going to join a meeting. If you don't have Zoom installed, usually there's a link here that says, oh, you don't have Zoom. Click here to install Zoom. So what you're clicking to install is the actual Zoom application or client that's needed to join a meeting. And that's what this is. You know, when you install the Zoom client and you're not logged in, this is what you see, right? This is the Zoom client with you not logged in, where you can just join a meeting as a guest if you need to. But normally we recommend that if you have Zoom installed on your work computer, you sign into it because you get a lot more features. And when you join a meeting, it knows that, you know, hey, this is my meeting, I should be the host or other things. And some meetings that require authenticated users, you can't join as a guest. You have to be logged in or be an authenticated user.
I wanted to add a quick clarification on the profile pictures. There was a user that said they changed their picture and it hasn't come up yet. So you have to log out of your client and then log back in for the changes to take effect after you make the changes on the Zoom portal. So that's for the picture to show up. But also the other thing that may happen sometimes is when a meeting is scheduled or set up, the host has the option of preventing profile pictures from showing up. There are other options. For example, the host can prevent names from showing up or changing your name to a nickname, for example. So those are settings that hosts have, the ability to turn on and off. So there will be meetings that your profile picture may not show up. That's because the host probably has that setting enabled and your picture is not showing up that.
Thanks, Pavel. John, I have a question about registration forms. If you don't mind, I can share my screen so I can
Sure.
do it. So Vicky asked how to set it up so that there is an automatic email sent to the attendee with Zoom details. So let me show you really quick how you can look at that. So can you see my screen okay, John?
Yep, we see your screen.
Okay, perfect. Let me just hide the meeting. Okay, so I'm back in my meetings. I selected the test meeting that I just made a few minutes ago. So what happens usually if somebody registers is they get an automatic email with a kind of like a form message that Zoom puts together that you can tweak just slightly, and it'll have information about the meeting, like the date and the time. Plus, it'll have links to calendar invites that somebody can download and add to their own calendar if they'd like, so they don't forget about the meeting. I also have another setting on my registration form, which is if you're trying to register for the meeting fewer than 60 minutes before the meeting's supposed to start, it'll just display the meeting details on the screen. So you don't have to wait for an email invite, for example, to join. Like it's just going to show up. So let me just kind of show you how to find that. So in regards to the email, once you've already created a registration form for your meeting, you're going to go to this tab here that says email settings. So you can change the contact. I've made the meeting, of course, that, I create, the email goes to me if somebody wants to ask questions about it. And then I have confirmation email to registrants. So right now the setting is send upon registration. And you can edit that if you want to make that manual, for example. But if I click edit, Here's where I could see information about the email. You can uncheck it to do it manually if you'd like to, but I would say in most cases, it's probably a bit of less work to just do it automatically. But I can do things like change the subject line. I can look at what the body of the email is. So, by default, Zoom's going to send thank you for registering for the name of the meeting. And then here's the information. In this field here, I can add additional information if I would like to about the meeting. And this is where those calendar invites are going to be. And if you had any questions, you can contact me. Zoom also includes all this information about how to join the meeting. So that's the automatic email that's going to be sent to everybody who registers for your meeting. And if you change anything, please click save so that it transfers the next time somebody tries to register for your meeting. And then there was one other thing. Oh, Vicky, the question you had about, I think you mentioned that you didn't see the registration form. I'm not sure, or rather the confirmation email. I'm not sure how soon to the meeting you registered, but if you click on the registration tab and go back into the options here and hit edit, you'll see the very last option here says show join info on registration confirmation page. So if you registered very close to the time of this meeting, you may not have gotten an email. You may have just seen the information appear on screen. And that's because I had this checked off. So I was just trying to, allow people who registered maybe very close to the time of our event to just see the information on screen and more easily join. So that's where that option appears as well. Hopefully that answered your question. And let me stop share just so I can hand it back over to John.
So another question somebody has about the meeting controls and Zoom launching. So meeting controls, yes, you can set them to, there's an arrow that you can do to minimize it, maximize it. In the settings, there's also a setting to automatically hide meeting controls. Or always, I'm sorry, the opposite, always show meeting controls. So they'll always show up on the screen. There's also a keyboard shortcut that you can do Control-Alt-Shift-H, and that will toggle between the meeting controls hiding and coming back. I'll post a link to the KB article from Zoom on that. As for the Zoom meetings automatically launching, that may be a browser related issue. So if you have trouble with Zoom meetings not launching automatically, you may want to clear your cookies and your browser cache. And then the next meeting that you try to launch, it should actually pop up with a prompt saying that that the browser would like to launch the Zoom application. And there should be a checkbox that says always or remember the setting. Once you click that checkbox and then allow it to launch, from that point on, it should automatically launch. With Macs, it may be a bit different. I'm sorry, I'm not fully versed with Macs, but they do have extra layers of security. You may need to go into the security settings to allow Zoom to have control over that portion. John, you may correct me on that. I'm not 100% on that.
I think it's the same thing. The browser will have a pop-up, and right, you accept it or not, and you can save, don't show me this again next time.
Are there
Any other questions?
Sorry, John.
No, go right ahead.
I know that Pavel answered a bunch in the Q&A. I think we answered all of them in the chat. I know we have a minute, but for those who signed in a little late, we are recording the session, so you should receive a link, an email, a follow-up email from me so that you can watch the video later for any parts that you may have missed. I think that we answered all the questions. However, if you do have questions after the session is over, something you just thought of, in that follow-up email, I'm going to have my email. I'm going to copy John and Pavel. So if you have any questions, feel free to just hit reply of anything that you may have thought of. And, we're here to help. Oh, a really quick question. Is there a reason why the link doesn't work in one of the meeting series? Oh, so if you have a meeting series and the link might not work, are there any tips for that one?
So you have a recurring meeting and the link doesn't work for one of them, but if you go to the next one, it works. It's possible that you can actually cancel an occurrence of a meeting in Outlook. So if somebody or maybe the host did that, that would be one example of why that may happen. Another thing to keep in mind about recurrence is that, let me share my screen quickly. And that's a really good question now that I'm thinking about it. This goes back to how, no, don't cancel meeting. Okay, new meeting. So this goes back to when you finish setting the meeting, when you add the Zoom meeting compared to when you finish setting the meeting information, right? So if the first thing I did was to add a Zoom meeting, then I come in here and choose a right date and the right time, right? And make it recurring. Zoom will actually not know that this is a recurring meeting. Because again, when you click this button, that's when the communication between Outlook and Zoom happens. And Outlook is telling Zoom, hey, I'm scheduling a meeting for this morning at 7 a.m. because that's the original time that when I opened this window. So now that I changed it, I make it recurring and I just send. Zoom doesn't have the updated information, does not know that it's recurring. What you need to do at that point is click update so that not only is it recurring within Outlook, it's recurring within Zoom. The alternative is, to not add the Zoom meeting until you're done setting the actual meeting information. So if I were to say, now choose June 1st at 9 a.m. and make it recurring. And now I add the Zoom meeting. Zoom will have this correct information with the date and the recurrence. You get away with it sometimes because when Zoom creates a meeting, that meeting link is actually active for 30 days. And usually when you have a recurring meeting, it happens within 30 days. So if you join again on day 29, that meeting link will be active again for another 30 days. And so what's happened in the past is people create a meeting in Outlook that they think it's recurring. In Zoom, it's not. But they've never had a problem because maybe it's a bi-weekly meeting and every 2 weeks they join in and that 30-day counter resets. But then all of a sudden during the holidays come along and they miss 2 of those meetings. Well, guess what? You haven't used that link in 6 weeks. So, and because it wasn't really a recurring meeting from Zoom's perspective, right? It was added before the recurrence was added. That meeting link has expired. All that to say, sorry, a little long-winded. Make sure if you're changing the Outlook date and time, make sure you come in here to settings and click update so that the meeting information is then pushed back to Zoom again, to your Zoom account.
Thanks, John. I have one more question and then I'm going to wrap it up because I know we're a little over, but it is about recurring meetings. So I thought it might be a good follow-up. Is there a way to set up a recurring meeting that does not follow a specific pattern?
Unfortunately not, right? It goes back to, setting a recurrence is the same. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you, John.
Yeah, go ahead.
But the answer to that is yes. So you can set up a recurring meeting that doesn't follow a pattern by setting up a meeting that does not have a fixed time on the recurrence. So if you go to the Zoom portal, John, if you want to go to, portal, go to meetings, and you create a meeting, click on recurring meeting, but then instead of assigning it a date and time frame, you set no fixed time. What that essentially does is creates an open-ended meeting that is always available. But then what you would do is you would copy that invitation, and in Outlook, you would send out a meeting for a specific date and time. And you can do that recurring, or you can create multiple recurring meetings, each one using that same invite, and people will be able to join that regardless of the time and date.
Am I not sharing my screen?
No,
Sorry,
you're
that
not.
didn't- Sorry. So was I sharing my Outlook when I was showing that previous thing that I was talking about with my recurrence?
You were doing that via Outlook before, yeah.
Okay, so what Pavel said, and right here, so if you come into the web and you go to meetings and schedule a meeting, and I didn't know that, it's great to know, you can click recurring and say no fixed time. But really, it's the same concept of what I was talking about in this recurrence, right? I said, often people schedule a meeting, add the Zoom, schedule a meeting in Outlook, add Zoom, and then make it recurring. And again, it still works because once you have the Zoom meeting created, it's active for 30 days, right? And if you had a recurring meeting that's going to happen multiple times, for a couple of weeks, it still works. So what Pavel's saying is basically you're creating a meeting that's just always active with no end date. And at that point, you can create the recurrence.
Now,
But you're still going to run into the same, issue with Outlook in that you need to create the meeting instances individually because Outlook requires a pattern as well.
Yes, and to confuse everybody a bit more, the dates and times set for Zoom meetings in the Zoom portal, they don't necessarily dictate anything unless you have specific settings applied. So if your security settings are generally open where people can just join the meeting, then it doesn't matter if they join on a different day, different time. Even if that recurring meeting is set, and you go into your meetings and it shows up on the list as once every 2 weeks, anybody with that link can still join at any point in time. So it's not
assuming you have this option checked, right? And this goes back to
that's why I mentioned, specific settings, right? Because you can have like a waiting room on, or you can have the security settings preventing others from joining or things of that nature that would prevent it. But if it's generally open the way, your non-important meetings happen, people will be able to join at any point.
So in the chat, there was the question, there was a monthly meeting working for the last month, but it's not working this month. I would say go into the web browser here to find that meeting to confirm that it was, recurring in the it's still configured as recurring in Zoom. Because again, the Outlook settings and the Zoom settings may not match. And if you're still having problems, feel free to open an incident and we'll help you take a look at it.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks to John and Pavel for answering all these questions, demonstrating some features in Zoom. Thank you to everybody else for joining us and taking the time to learn more about Zoom features. Again, I'll be sending a follow-up email tomorrow with a link to the video and some links to support guides, that talk about a lot of the features we discussed today, and you can just refer to them for that step-by-step instruction to help you the next time you're setting up your own meeting. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day, guys.
Bye.